Great. So at this point, we'll go straight into implementing the restrictions slash policies, but we'll be using a Huawei router. Unfortunately, this will not be a live demo because I couldn't get access to the router. There were one or two issues, so I quickly got snapshots of the essential steps. And so please bear with me as we go through them one by one. It will be quick, it will be detailed, and hopefully it will be informative to you as well. And so the Huawei router is the HG8145V5 series. And so once I entered in the IP address, which you will find at the bottom of the router, first off, please make sure the router is turned on and make sure that the laptop you are using is connected to that said router. It's only then that you can now input the IP address of the router and then get this very page. Now, upon arriving at this page, you see this username, password, and these two details can be found at the bottom of the router. So at the bottom of my router, the username I saw was root, so I keyed it in. The password, I also found it at the bottom, I keyed it in. What I did was I hit login, and this is where it brought me. So this is the home page, basically. And at the top, you will even get to see the router IP, which is 192.168.100.1 in my case. Now, remember, we are implementing restrictions. Basically, we are letting the users know you cannot access this site or that site, or a list of sites even. We are blocking access to all of those sites. That is what we are doing. That's the thrust of our discussion. So this is the home page. We'll navigate to the advanced section at the very bottom on the left pane. Now, once you get there, automatically one is selected, but we do not need the wireless wide access network configuration. What we need is under security. And so you navigate to security, which is the third in the list, and you click it. Now, there's a drop down under security with about six sub points. There are a lot of interesting ones there, but we'll tackle them much later in our series. For now, we navigate to parental controls. Now, you will notice, I really wish I could highlight, forgive me for this, but if you look keenly, you will see apply on all devices. There's a radio button next to that, and you'll find that it has been pre-selected, and we'll keep it that way because we want the changes we are about to make to apply on all the devices connected to this network. But if you look above that, you see three words separated by uh, slashes, I think. First, you see overview. Next is template. And lastly, statistics. We will not use statistics in the course of uh, our guide, but very soon we'll move to templates. So at this point, under parental control, this is where we kick off the whole process. So what we do now is under the apply on all devices, you see new and delete. We've not yet started anything to delete, so we click on new. Now, once you click on new, we get more options. Basically, what we'll be doing now is creating a template. It's the template that will be able to edit and now apply the restrictions on the website. And so we just need to describe this template. So under device description, we put something there like internet usage policies. So what we now do is we click apply. Now that is done, it's different from before because previously, what did we see? We saw dashes, right? Under device dash, description dash, binding templates dash. But after creating a template, now we see that there are actual words in there. Now all those words are clickable. All devices is clickable, internet usage clickable, template, etc. So you click anywhere on that row and it takes you to this page. And you notice it has moved from overview and you'll see it at the top of new and delete. You see those two options, new and delete. Right above them, you see three options, overview, template, statistics. Previously, let me go back. We were on overview. And once we clicked one of the rows, it took us where? To template. And then there's a checkbox right next to the template row. Once we click it, it gives us more options, right? You see template name and validity period. Helpful, but not what we'll be using in our conversation or in our step-by-step process. Next, you see allowed network surfing period. So what this means is you can set periods for the people in the office, or perhaps you are even watching this tutorial to apply to your home router. So in that case, you could set a time period where the internet will be active. So perhaps you want your kids to use the router between the hours of perhaps 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. But after 8 p.m., they will connect, but it will say not connected or no internet because the time is it's not time for them to browse. But we are using an office setting here, and so that this will not really work because we need them to have access 24/7. We just need to restrict where they have access to. Next, you see prohibited websites, and that this is the core of our discussion. So under prohibited website, in fact, sorry, above it, you see the word set. It's a button. So we click set to set the prohibited website. And there's a checkbox right next to the word enable website filter. What we do is we click that checkbox and then we get some options under it. So you notice here that once that checkbox is ticked, the filter mode is set to blacklist. What blacklist means is any site we now enter here, the user will not be allowed to visit. Whereas if we change the setting to whitelist, what that will mean is the user will only be able to access the sites that we provide. So if, for example, we set it to whitelist and we added the URL of perhaps google.com, if the user were to type snapchat.com, no access. If he or she were to type perhaps a gambling site, nothing. If the person were to type ChatGPT, nothing. If the person were to type Canva, no access because the only website the person is able to access is google.com. That's if we use whitelist, but that's not what we want. So we stick to blacklist. Next, we click on new, and then you see URL address followed by a colon. So what we do now is we copy the URL that we don't want the user to visit and we paste it here. Once you're done, you click on apply, and then boom, under prohibited websites, you have one prohibited website, which is www.gambling.com. This is just a generic one. So you could, it's a bit tedious. And this is why most companies go in for dedicated firewall because it allows you to properly filter the websites or the URLs that you don't want the workers in the company getting access to. So with some firewalls, instead of having to go and find all the gambling websites and list them one by one, there's a gambling button there. Once you check it, it automatically creates a profile or review an internal database full of a complete list of websites, gambling websites that the user is not supposed to visit, which is constantly updated, right? And so it's much easier to use as firewall, a dedicated firewall, because it's a small company. We are using the router, the parental control setting in the router to go about our setup. So you go to set again if you want to add another URL, and you repeat the steps until you have the ideal number of prohibited websites. And that's it, you're done. Once you close that page, anyone, you could test it and see and find that no one will be able to access any of the sites that you have prohibited. And that's it for today. And we have an exciting update coming up in the next video. Thanks for watching.